Welcome to the Rocky Mountain AI Interest Group. The following presentation, AI in Government, Smart Cities, took place on Monday, March 23, 2026 at the Engineering Sciences Building at the University of Colorado in Boulder. The evening covered how municipal systems like roads, utilities, emergency services, zoning, and public safety are undergoing fundamental changes as AI tools are incorporated. Presentations were given by Tyler Svitak, the Executive Director of Colorado Smart Cities Alliance, Nicole Sterling, the founder and CEO of MyTown AI, and Mayor Pro Tem of the wonderful little town of Nederland, Colorado, Davyd Smith, the Director of Technology for the state of Colorado, and Bill Quinn, a futurist with Tata Consultancy Services.
Okay, I would like to welcome you to the Rocky Mountain AI Interest Group. My name is Dan Murray, and excited to see all of you here for our program. Before we start, let me just ask you guys a question. Is anyone feeling any bit of overwhelm in terms of keeping up with what's happening in AI these days? Okay, is it affecting anyone's job search? What's going on in AI? Is it affecting anyone's sleep cycle? What's going on in AI? Is it affecting their anxiety level? I feel like even people on the inside of this are having trouble just keeping up with it. And I don't think you have to keep up with every single tool. There's just new stuff dropping all the time. It's impossible to keep up. It's more about what do you want to do with AI? What parts of you do you want to express with AI? And getting a tool set that enables you to do that. So just today, we hit 3,900 members. So welcome, it's great to have you all here. We are going to go through some intro slides. We're going to talk about our subgroups, and then I'm going to turn it over to Phil, who's going to be our MC, and Carla. Phil and Carla are co-MCs tonight. So let me introduce, we have an executive committee of 5 members who help run the group. Any executive committees here? Committee members, raise your hand. Phil is on the executive committee. Bobby is here, but Susan is right there. You can reach out to any of us if you have a speaker suggestion, if you have a topic that you want us to cover, if you'd like to volunteer with the group, volunteer to speak, you can reach any of us. Let me thank our sponsors. Our 2 platinum sponsors are Brad Feld and Kamawaza. And then we have a number of gold and silver sponsors. Gold sponsors, Bear Peak Technology Group, Iterate.ai, KO Law, and then silver sponsors, Colorado AI News, which Phil runs, Chris Black Consulting, is Chris here? Herding Wolves, Intuis.ai, and Mutual Intelligence. Let's give a round of applause to all our sponsors. So we cover certain topics at this monthly meeting. This tends to be a more general, sort of a general level of content at the monthly meetings, but then we have 10 different special interest subgroups where we can go a lot deeper than we can go at the monthly meeting. And this is the list of all of those subgroups. I'm going to give you a QR code at the end where you can plug in and subscribe to these different groups. And we're going to tell you about some upcoming meetings. And so we're going to do the first 4, so AI in product, AI in education, Fort Collins, RMAIIG marketing. If anyone is announcing those, please come up to the stage. Then we're going to do the last 4, the ethics, Women in AI, Colorado, legal, and Denver. We're just going to go through some of the upcoming meetings so you have an idea of all the different RMAIIG things that are happening in a given month. So first up, AI in product. I will announce this one. There's an event coming up that is on Thursday, May 7th, and it is from Vibe to Viable. So it's going to be about prototyping, pivoting, spinning up quick prototypes. And this is associated with Boulder Startup Week. So that's going to be a very cool meeting. There's a QR code if you want more information on that one. And this group is meeting in Denver tonight. We happen to have a conflict, so they're not here to make an announcement. Okay, next one. AI in education. Is Bobby here? I think Bobby stepped out. All right, I will try and come back to that one when Bobby is here. Fort Collins, we have a March 30th event, which is job seeking in the era of AI. All you job seekers, check that out. April 20th is a community demo day. And so that's our Fort Collins group. Next up is the marketing subgroup. Okay, so Bobby is here. Let me have Bobby announce AI in education. And by the way, Bobby is the one that provides this room, so give him a big round of applause.
Sorry I'm late. I was trying to wrangle everybody out there to bring them in here. So real quick, we've got our next AI in education meeting. Carl, I don't know if Carl's in here, is going to be talking about AI avatars in education. So really exciting. It's going to be in the same room, not in this, in the same building, not in this same room. It's going to be upstairs, but should be a really interesting talk on what's going on with these AI avatars and for students and things like that. So there's a QR code. Would love to have you.
Thank you, Bobby. Okay, now the RMAIIG marketing subgroup. Jason just walked in the door.
The pizza's still slightly warm. So join us April 9th. This gentleman who will be speaking, his name's Viku, as you can see, discussing how Claude Code for Marketing includes a case study of building a website from scratch in 3 days and ranked on Google and appeared in ChatGPT 2 weeks later. I saw this website. It is amazing. It's got like 400 pages, and I'm actually following his playbook to do something similar. So definitely join us April 9th. Chris Black will be leading that event, and coffee's always free.
Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it. This is, again, the list, special interest subgroups. Now we're going to do the last 4: ethics, women in AI, legal AI, and the Denver group. If you're one of those announcers, come on up. And we will start with ethics. Is Ken or Chris here? Chris is not. Okay, I will announce this one. So ethics follows the topics of the monthly meetings. April 6th, they're going to be talking about AI in government, public trust and guardrails. Then April 27th, they're going to follow our storytelling theme, talk about meaning, manipulation, and new voices. And then finally, May 27th, AI and energy, who pays for the compute boom? And this is related to all those big data centers that are being proposed in Colorado and everywhere else. Okay, so next up, we have Women in AI Colorado, Susan and Cynthia.
All right. Hey, everybody. Our next meetup is Tuesday, April 14th. It's on Claim Your Sovereignty, values, AI, and expertise that's already yours. There's a lot of talk about how we as humans can adapt to this technology. And we have a great speaker who's part of our community, which is Alexis Halkovic. She's a leadership coach, social scientist, psychologist, and co-CEO of Culture Camp AI. And she has a really cool cognitive assessment to bring us all through as a group. It's going to be a great night, and it's at Kiln in downtown Boulder.
Hi, and then I also want to announce our second lab. So this is a Saturday at the Broomfield Library, April 11th, and we are going to be working on Build Your Own AI Assistant. And you do leave the room with at least one AI assistant, if not 2 or 3.
Great.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, next, Carla is our new subgroup leader for the legal AI subgroup, and she will introduce her upcoming meeting.
Well, good evening, all. I'm very excited to introduce our upcoming meeting of the legal subgroup. We will be talking about AI and the death of confidentiality. I know that sounds ominous, but we're going to be talking about privacy, right? Privacy is an important topic, and we have a couple of lawyers who are going to be addressing those topics. One of them is kindly flying in from New York because one of the topics of discussion is one of the new opinions that was issued out of the Southern District of New York that addresses AI and privilege. So we look forward to finalizing the details. We're still working on that final date. Lawyers are busy, so I don't have a final date just yet, but it'll be either the 17th or the 24th, and we hope you can join us.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla. And last but not least, the Denver AI subgroup has a meeting coming up this Wednesday. I don't think Brett or David are here, so I will announce this one. This is Software as a Service Autopsy, Deconstructing AI's Murder of the Software Industry. You've probably been seeing what's happening to software stocks. They've been getting killed this year because there's a worry that AI is going to put them out of business. And so John Nordmark, who's a well-known Colorado entrepreneur, is going to lead that discussion, and we're going to talk about AI's impact on the SaaS industry. And finally, AI engineering and machine learning. Is Bill here? Okay, this is going to be an April 2nd meeting, Securing Your Agents. So it's on AI agents, practical LLM, and agentic security. It's not just about agents, but about the security aspect of agents. That one also meets at Founder Central in the morning, Thursday, April 2nd. And I'm going to show a link here. This is the QR code for our link tree, which connects to all of the subgroups, connects to our YouTube videos, our Slack community, which has 840 members, the shared calendar with all the events. So this is really the only one you need to get to all of the different events that are offered by RMAIIG. So I will give you a minute for anyone that wants to scan that. And then we'll talk about our upcoming meetings for 2026. So we've booked out the spring dates. In April, we're going to be covering AI and storytelling. May is going to be AI and energy. June is a top secret topic that is not being shared with me yet, so I can't tell you. We take off July. Then we'll have a full fall schedule highlighted by November, AI robotics, and we hope to have a full-size humanoid robot walking around the room just like last time for anyone that was here. Anyone come to the AI robotics last time? Cool. I went to CES Vegas in January just to beg like 50 robotics companies to bring their robots to Boulder. And so we're still working on that. Sure.
Just really quick, you'll notice, again, a couple of TBDs. We are always interested and enthusiastic about anyone's ideas. So please come and ideate with us about what future presentations and RMAIIG events might be about.
Cool. Thank you, Phil. I would like to thank our pizza sponsor. Tonight, our pizza sponsor is Trimble. They're a leader in GI-centric lifecycle management. They're helping cities connect data across all the different nodes that they have. And they're turning that data into actionable intelligence. Please help me give a hand to Trimble for sponsoring pizza tonight. Okay, I just have one more slide, and then I'm going to get out of here, turn it over to Phil and Carla to run the meeting. Does anyone have any job openings, AI job openings that they would like to announce? Raise your hand if you have an AI job opening, if your company is hiring people in AI. Raise your hand if you're an AI job seeker. Is anyone looking for a job? Okay, so we have a handful of those. Any announcements? Do people want to announce other groups, other events? Sir.
If anybody is in machine learning engineering or working on the alignment problem, the AI alignment problem, if you could maybe reach out to me or speak with me, I would appreciate it.
What is your name?
Kevin Couch.
Kevin. Okay, cool. Thank you. Other announcements, other groups, other events. Daniel Ritchie has an announcement. Famous AI roboticist.
Thank you, Dan. Maybe an ask. or an offer, depending on how you look at this, more than an announcement. I have a bunch of tiny little robots. They're for like interaction. They're kind of cute, but they could serve commercial purposes. They could be used for research. I have a little fleet of them that I'm trying to find things to do with, and there's no rebate for unused robots. So if anyone wants to explore and experiment and you have an idea that you want to see if we can pull it off, let me know. My name is Daniel Ritchie, and my email is daniel@brainwavecollective.ai.
Cool. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, one more announcement, and then we will get rolling with the meeting. Sir.
Hi, I'm Daniel Howard. Just wanted to share that coming up on Friday, March 27th, will be the first of a three-part series from NSF National Center for Atmospheric Research on applications of artificial intelligence and Earth system sciences. You can find the link in the local Boulder subreddit if you like, but there's also, I'll share it with appropriate people here to maybe distribute if people would like to sign up and register for the online session.
Sure. If you email it to my email address there, I'm happy to share it. Anyone else? Last call? Announcements. Okay, so let me turn the meeting over to Phil and Carla, who have actually spent a lot of time setting this up, and I would like to give them a hand and thank them for all the work they did to organize this entire meeting. Okay, I will let you guys take it away.
Hello, hello. So before we get started with tonight's event, we have Neha, who has something to tell everyone about Boulder Startup Week. And we only do this for very special partners, and Neha and Boulder Startup Week is one of them. And we've somehow messed up because we can't find her slides, so we're going to make her wing it. But I think she's got this information down. What do you think? Go for it.
Thanks, Phil. So I'm Neha. I'm part of the organizing team at the Boulder Startup Week, and I'm here to invite you to save the date and to get involved and participate with Boulder Startup Week. This is our 17th edition this year, and it's going to be running from May 4th to May 8th. This is your chance to be visible. You know, this is a free week-long conference in Boulder that brings together the entrepreneurial community. So founders, investors, operators, talent pool, and just the startup curious community all coming together. This is your chance to do a showcase. If you're building something you want to put up there, if you want to network, if you want this chance to have some meaningful learning and connections across the ecosystem, you should not be waiting. So please go on. I don't have the slide up here, but go to boulderstartupweek.com. You can sign up for 3 really fun events to get involved. We have our pitch competition, speed mentoring, and the startup fair. This is an absolutely free event. These are all free events. Sign up there before March 31st. That's the deadline for us to take in applications. And then follow us on our social channels because we'll have the schedule dropping very soon and a lot more information coming your way. So I'm around. If you have any questions that come up, feel free to chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Neha. Nice work. And again, March 31st, so what is that? Just 8 days from today is the deadline for getting your submittal, or is it submission, into Boulder Startup Week.
If you have learned those patterns, you can generate new information. AI is moving so fast.
It's being deployed prematurely. There's so much potential for things to go wrong.
Why can't we just stop?
All these companies are in a race to get AI that's vastly more intelligent than people within this decade.
China, North Korea, Russia.
Whoever wins is essentially the controller of humankind.
We need to take a threat from AI as seriously as global nuclear war.
It feels like I have to find these CEOs and get them in the movie.
Great.
I want to ask you to promise me that this is going to go well.
That is impossible.
Okay.
Am I hopeful? Yes. Am I confident that it'll go right? Absolutely not. AI is the thing that can solve climate change.
We could cure most diseases.
What if it's expanding what is humanly possible?
This is the most extraordinary time ever. The only time more exciting than today is tomorrow.
I already love you.
Okay.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
By using AI, we're about to move off of the Earth into the cosmos.
If we can be the most mature version of ourselves, there might be a way through this.
This is the last mistake we'll ever get to make.
What do you think? Does it look kind of cool? Yeah, kind of, sort of. All right. So, how are we doing? Doing good. All right, awesome. So with all that, hopefully that wasn't too much of a distraction. And generally, I feel when things don't quite go right or according to plan these days, I just say, this is a metaphor for the world we are now living in, and that we all must stay, I call it the A word, agile. We have to stay agile. We have to stay flexible because, wow, it's going to be needed now and going forward more than ever. Okay, so with that, should we get started? I would like to introduce our first speaker. I'm very excited to present to all of you. His name is Tyler Svitak, and he is a nationally recognized leader in smart city innovation with over a decade of experience driving transformative projects at the intersection of technology, infrastructure, and government. As executive director of the Colorado Smart Cities Alliance, the first and largest statewide coalition of its kind, he has developed more than 80 technology-driven initiatives addressing challenges in mobility, climate, energy, and community resilience. Under his leadership, the Alliance has launched groundbreaking programs like the Connected Colorado Challenge and the Smart Futures Lab, secured millions of dollars in public and private investment, and become a hallmark partner in the modernization of Colorado's infrastructure. Incidentally, Tyler has won the Denver Business Journal's 40 Under 40 Award and Dr. Cog's Metro Vision Award. For those of you who don't know Dr. Cog, okay, who here knows Dr. Cog? Shout it out. You all get that? Denver Regional Council of Government. Cool kids call it Dr. Cog. So congratulations, Tyler. Award-winning Tyler. Come on down. Please welcome Tyler Svitak.
Thank you, Phil. I think this mic is working. It is. Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, to have so many people that are interested in government after hours in one room. This is great. So Phil just read my bio, which is longer, and maybe we should have used AI to do a concise version of it. But really, if I had to summarize my career, it's been using technology to solve meaningful problems. I've either worked in nonprofit or government my entire career, trying to bring the best technologies from the private sector and to apply them to issues that you and I all care about. They happen to just be anchored usually by government. So today I'm going to talk specifically about a number of use cases and ways that AI is actively today being applied in local and state government here in Colorado. There's a lot of conversations we can have about how it could be applied and hypothetical use cases. I'm also, I love that, but I thought what would be most interesting today and what you're not going to find on the internet are the actual ways that these are being used inside of local government today. So I'm going to do that. What I'm not going to be able to cover in 15 minutes are all of the barriers and challenges that these projects and these use cases represent. I hope we have time with the other panelists to get into some of those things in the Q&A. So I'm just going to focus specifically on ways that it's being used, and we can talk about the hard stuff after that. Real quick on my organization, just so you understand my day-to-day. So I run a nonprofit organization that works with local and state government across Colorado to create technology partnerships with them that can solve the issues that impact quality of life for all of us every day. Transportation, energy, water, all of the things that our local governments are responsible for. And as Phil mentioned, we were the first doing this in the country at a statewide level and are now the largest. These are my primary customers. You probably recognize many of the logos on the screen. These are the cities, counties, districts, libraries. We've actually done a lot of work with libraries. And my job is to understand their needs, the challenges that these governments are facing, and to expose those needs as the demand side of a marketplace to the supply side of technology innovation all over the world. And so when we talk about AI in government, AI is just a tool. It's the most recent technology tool that the private sector has developed, and it can be applied in a lot of different ways. In fact, I've really struggled to find a single issue in government that AI could not be applied to in some way. Of course, it hasn't been applied in all the ways yet. And government has very particular needs that are very different than the private sector, right? What motivates a government employee to do something, to change, to use AI, for example, is completely different than what motivates the private sector to do it. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today. So we're working on all sorts of things. I mean, just one county government might have well over 100 different programs and services that they provide to the general public. These are 6 of the big themes that we come across in the research that we do with our jurisdictions, where they are looking for innovation. We go to our governments and ask them, what challenges do you have that you don't have solutions for? That is where we usually begin these conversations, is how can these tools like AI be applied to solve a meaningful problem, not the other way around. So there's a lot of things actually happening today. And you guys all know AI. You know that it's not necessarily new. Things like machine vision and computer vision have been happening for a long time. Governments have been using things like cameras or LiDAR sensors, which the images on the right-hand side are snapshots from what each of those types of sensors see. So being able to remotely gather images of things like our streets or our underground water infrastructure, for example, machines can now process that data and identify things like pavement condition very quickly and very accurately. On the LiDAR side, that sensor and that data is uniquely different than a camera. It's inherently private, and it has much higher resolution in many cases. And so there are many different use cases that I'll talk about that use those different sensor types and apply machine vision AI to detect all sorts of things that happen in our infrastructure right of way. The primary one is potholes. So if your community is still, actually, let me explain how this currently happens. We don't know where all the potholes are. Until very recently, we have technology that can very equitably understand where all of our potholes are. Right now, jurisdictions depend primarily on you all to call in a pothole. And of course, there's lots of technologies that allow this to happen more efficiently, 311 systems. But now what is happening is City of Boulder, City of Commerce City, there are many, many jurisdictions, Greeley, Centennial, are using artificial intelligence embedded at the edge inside of cameras that are attached to fleet vehicles that drive around the city all day long and create essentially a digital twin of the pavement condition across the city. Potholes, of course, or road hazards, as they're often called, is a big use case. But the overall pavement condition index that is used in order to determine, does your road need to be repaved, not just a pothole filled, which are major infrastructure investments, is now being driven by data and not just whether you call in and whether it's a scheduled maintenance type of thing. Other things like signage. So that's a photo of AI that's essentially classifying parking rules. Most cities don't understand all of the parking rules and regulations that they might have throughout the city, let alone where that parking is, whether it's currently available or not. And they certainly aren't able to communicate that to the public in a coherent, easy way to consume. And so there's a company called Modi that's based here that uses artificial intelligence to classify all of that and communicate to the public. And then sidewalks and ADA compliance. In fact, that's a problem that we've been focusing on very recently, is the ability for sensors and AI to determine very specific requirements around ADA compatibility for sidewalks. Turns out that's really, really hard to do with satellite data. And so we've been looking at strapping LiDAR sensors to scooters and other fun things like that. One very interesting use case that I thought you guys would want to know about is actually, these are associate professor and a PhD student out of CU Denver that have been working on wastewater infrastructure. Turns out the city of Denver has about 6 full-time employees, engineers, that spend a lot of their time looking at the inside of water pipes and CCTV footage to determine where defects are in that infrastructure. AI, of course, could probably do that much quicker and more effectively, so they developed algorithms, worked with the city and county of Denver and their wastewater team in order to just process that video much faster. And it turns out they are able to achieve about a 99% accuracy in defect identification as verified by those engineers. It's about 6 times faster, and just with this small pilot, they are saving about $360,000 annually for the city. If I had to pick one industry where the most innovation is happening and the most artificial intelligence applications lie, it's in transportation. Specifically, I'm going to cover 3, but the use case list is so long. The city of Greeley is using cameras right now deployed with new smart street poles to automatically detect when a crash occurs at some of the most dangerous intersections in Greeley. You would think that when someone crashes, someone's going to call 911 right away, but if this happens late at night, for example, or if chaos ensues, even 30 seconds can be the difference between someone saving a life and someone passing away. So they have built a system that uses that camera's footage, AI, and has tied that into the 911 dispatch center. So the 911 dispatch center gets a call as soon as a crash occurs, and also a small video clip that might determine the severity of that crash, the number of passengers, and those things. Adaptive signal timing is also a big one. So today, your traffic signals are primarily timed by traffic engineers that put in a static timing plan, and it never changes no matter what the real-time conditions of the roadway may be. Of course, managers can determine exactly what the throughput capacity of a roadway network might be and change that signal in real time based on the optimum timing plan for the entire grid. And then there's a lot of use cases around pedestrian and vulnerable road user safety to determine if, for example, someone needs extra time to cross the crosswalk. A sensor can detect that and automatically extend the time of that pedestrian crossing. One use case that was in the news recently is a project that I was involved with from the very beginning. So the town of Parker, small suburb of Denver, they have had a really significant vandalism problem in a brand new park that they invested a lot of money into. And no matter how many police they put out there and patrol, they couldn't seem to get a handle on it. So City Council has just voted to apply for a grant that will use cameras and artificial intelligence to identify vandalism at night in that park and to trigger a 911 call, or I guess a dispatch from public safety. And they'll be applying for that grant this month. Another area I didn't think I was really going to ever spend a lot of time in is permitting and development. So turns out one of the biggest delays in getting new housing built or any new development underway is the permitting and review process. So today, in major cities, over 80% of the applications for new development may actually not even have all of the required documentation in order to get reviewed at all. Sometimes that can take 1 to 3 months just for someone to get around to look at that application and go back to the reviewer, or excuse me, the applicant, and say, you don't even have all the materials you need. So artificial intelligence is great at taking documentation, comparing it against regulatory frameworks and permitting requirements, and very quickly being able to either kick it back to the applicant and say you need to keep applying and this is what you need, or to help the reviewer actually expedite the review process and say, this is where I think, or AI thinks, that this needs work, and here's the specific regulation that is being referenced. The city of Denver just signed a $4.6 million 3-year contract with a startup called CivCheck to do this in Denver. The city of Centennial is working with a company called Sembla through a challenge that we hosted. And today, Mesa County and the Department of Local Affairs at the state is using an artificial intelligence platform called Symbium to automatically, so agentically, produce permits for new solar in Mesa County. One of the most interesting use cases is a company called Flock. So I'll play this video in a second, but I'll kind of orient you to what you're going to see. This company came through our Business Accelerator program last year. They're based out of Sweden. And the problem that they're solving is that there are a lot of human-animal-wildlife conflicts that occur on railroads, on transportation corridors, and especially at airports. In fact, bird collisions and rabbits and other things at airports are one of an enormous problem. I forget the statistics, and I probably should have put them here. But this company is using artificial intelligence to identify species around a conflict zone, and then what's called bioacoustics, or the ability to use a very specific sound that that species does not like to deter that animal safely away from the conflict zone. So I'm going to play this short little video, and it'll show you an example of this.
And what the system does when it detects something, it will go down to a lower altitude to maximize the effect of the herding, and then we'll also start issuing a sound specific to the species. So you as a management team can decide on where do you want the animals to go when they're not on the runway.
I started the company back in 2020 as a spin-out from research on AI at KTH, the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. And the vision has been to create a world where humans and wildlife coexist by combining the best of generative AI and wildlife science.
So this company is actually working on multiple projects in Colorado. So Greeley-Weld Airport, Denver International Airport are both piloting their technology this year. They are also talking with the state right now about using the same technology to try and deter wolves from ranches, which is a major concern here in Colorado. One of the last use cases that I'll talk about before I wrap up is a project that's not actually real yet. However, some of the components of it are. And AI has an amazing opportunity to make our communities more resilient. Today, this is a map that you can see here of what's called the wildland-urban interface. So essentially, almost 5 million people in the Front Range live in some of the most fire-prone areas in the country. Today, the way that, just like a pothole gets called in, the way we know a fire exists is someone has to see it. And they have to call that in and call 911. Dispatch then determines who is closest. They can go verify that there's a fire there. But sensors can do this as well. In fact, there's a company called N5 Sensors that's partly based in Longmont, Colorado, that has, that's what this sensor is here on the bottom left. It's a chemical sensor. It's essentially an outdoor smoke alarm that uses all sorts of air quality sensors in order to determine whether or not the presence of smoke, not just any smoke, but specifically wildfire smoke, is around. And so instead of having to have flames and plumes of smoke, you can detect fires at very small levels and be able to get to them more quickly. There's also a lot of work being done with cameras and AI to detect fires. But in this case, we're trying to combine that technology of sensing with generative artificial intelligence in order to do real-time fire modeling and also evacuation planning. So this is FireGuard is an idea we're about to apply for a $3 million grant from Google that's currently open today that would allow us to put about 200 wildfire sensors across the entire Front Range of Colorado, across 4 different fire districts. Those sensors would then inform real-time models. So if a fire was triggered, you would get real-time understanding of how that fire would spread based on what the real environmental conditions are today. And you could then, more proactively and more accurately, communicate with the communities that are at risk of wildfire and get them evacuated more quickly. So that was just a sampling of all sorts of use cases that are currently happening today in different cities and counties across the state. We have, through our organization, created about 106 different initiatives. Not all of them are AI, but I would say the plurality of them are. If you are working with a new technology and it's not using AI, I don't know that I've seen one in a really long time. We also do a lot of work to scale and replicate the things that are successful. And so about 44% of those 106 projects have actually been replicated from one city to another or scaled from a pilot to commercial scale. So I hope we get to talk a lot more about a lot of the considerations around these use cases and why and how using AI in government is different than in the private sector, but a few considerations to leave you with. One is that I didn't know this until I worked in government, but government doesn't really do a lot of building, right? They usually buy things. So I worked at CDOT, they don't really build roads. They oversee and manage contractors who design and build roads. But in this case, government can actually now develop their own tools, and that's completely transformative because government would develop a tool a lot differently than the private sector would. So they're developing their own solutions. Second is data quality and governance. Data matters a lot, and governance matters a lot to government, and they treat it very differently. But historically, governments haven't treated data like a really valuable resource, and so the quality of data is a primary issue that the private sector doesn't have to deal with as much as the public sector does. And then finally, perception versus reality, whether something is actually working or whether something is actually a privacy risk, for example. If the public thinks it is, it's something that has to be dealt with, and that is something very real. So thank you all so much. I look forward to the chat later on.
Thanks, Tyler. That was awesome, if I may say so.
Testing.
Well, that was very exciting conversation. I can see everyone is super fascinated and now is ready for our next speaker. That is Nicole Sterling. I was very excited actually about introducing Nicole today because she is one of those rare leaders who is at the intersection of AI and the real world, right? She understands smart cities are not just about sensors and data, but they're about people. And as the founder and CEO of My Town AI, she's building a civic intelligence platform that uses Gen AI and digital twins to help local governments solve very human problems, from housing to transportation, among others, right? But Nicole doesn't just build the tech. She has to make it work in the real world. And she is also the mayor pro tem of Nederland, Colorado. She's also a director for the Denver Regional Council of Governments and a pragmatist who views AI as a powerful tool for under-resourced communities to finally catch up to the private sector. And beyond the office and the council chambers, Nicole is a fierce advocate for equity. She is the co-founder of Women Defining AI, a nonprofit dedicated to closing the gender gap in AI fluency. And when she isn't demystifying algorithms, she is also a mom and a plant lover.
Yes,
which is quite admirable.
You find this online? Yeah. This is like their time that's happened to me. You're a plant lover. I was like, I didn't tell you that, did I?
I may have done a little sniffing around. Guilty as charged. And with that, I will turn it over.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem of Nederland, Colorado. I have to start. All my the town lawyer always says I can't answer any questions about Eldora, but yes, that was my idea. So lots of little projects going on, but I'm happy to be here talking to you about AI and local government because as I was introduced, I have been at the ground level from policy to helping under-resourced communities make sense of their data. As Tyler mentioned, we haven't in local government paid as much attention to our data, but we're starting to pay attention now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start us and how it happened, all starting in a small little community. Nederland, Colorado is only 1,500 residents. That is it. We are less than 2 square miles wide. We don't even make it to the 2 square mile point. And so how does AI get started in a little community like that? And then the Mayor Pro Tem go on to found her own company. So let's start there. So what does AI in public sector look like? And Tyler set it up nicely in that we are dealing with different problems in a different way. I would say a majority of local governments are risk averse. They've sort of they've been conditioned to do that, right? Don't take too many risks. Don't go too far. What do the residents think? They're just starting their AI journey in many regards. I think the ones that Tyler put up on the screen are folks that are really kind of launched into it. What is the percentage of towns that are considered small towns in the United States, under 50,000? What is the percentage? Throw out a number. 95%. 95% of all towns in the United States are considered small towns under 50,000 residents. So many of them are starting their AI journeys. And as this quote goes, it's a funny quote, it was told to me early on my local government journey, no one likes to be first, but everyone loves to be second. And we're seeing that, we saw that a little bit with AI as well, we've got a few early adopters, but everyone else is kind of sitting back and watching how things go. And we do have to worry about our resident viewpoints. Is it a perception or is it a reality? If we're not willing to talk about the environment, we are going to disengage some of our residents. And so we do need to be fluent in how we talk about it and make sure that we've got we're leaning in to where some of the issues are. And luckily, what I love about being in local government is that we get to set the policy. We set the policy for when data centers come into our jurisdictions. So we are thinking about that from a standpoint of the environmental concerns and who do we let in and how do we let them in. I would also say that IT departments are sometimes leading the charge and sometimes they are not. We're seeing that across different jurisdictions. There are some IT folks who say they do not want to lead the charge. They want the user, they want the folks who are front and center of the use cases to be the ones. And yes, we actually have, so one of the things I forgot to say is I also co-chaired the GovAI Coalition's Use Cases Committee. And the GovAI Coalition came out of San Jose, city of San Jose, to help local jurisdictions procure safe, ethical, and responsible AI. And I've just led 2 sessions on vibe coding in local government. So where Tyler had said, yes, local governments are starting to be the developers themselves, they are. And I'll show you what some of those use cases. They're treading lightly, they're tiptoeing into it, but they are doing it. So how did we start in little old Nederland, Colorado? Well, it was this thing in 2024 where we decided, let's go buy a ski mountain. What in the world? Talk to me after April 30th, that's when we close. But we started by looking at sentiment. So we actually made the announcement and then shortly thereafter, we wanted to understand what people were saying. So do they go to your government website or where do they have the conversation? Social media, and specifically? Or Facebook, that's a lot on Facebook. And so, but the APIs don't really work well on Facebook. Maybe somebody has solved that piece, but especially into a private group, they don't work that well. And so we went in, we scraped and went in and kind of copied and pasted. This was very manual back then, right? Copied and pasted, and then removed all the identifying information and said, okay, what are people saying? That was the very first tiptoe into our local government actually using AI. We got a sentiment analysis, and that actually populated our very first frequently asked questions that we released to the media and to the residents. And then from there, we're like, wow, cool. Once you pull your data together, and I'll show you a little bit about what this looks like when, because I built My Town AI, that's my company. Once you pull this data together, you get to do other cool things. I hear about, some of the groups where you guys are building assistants and putting your AI over your data. Well, for my town manager, the power use case was writing a staff report. That's the agenda for a board of trustees or a city council meeting. These things are beefy. Our packets can be 200 pages long. I know, right? $150 stipend a month? What the heck, right? No, but that's what it is. But public servants have that grueling thing that they have to do, but it's just as much grueling for our town manager who has to write these agendas. And so he started, once I pulled all the data together in my town AI, he's like, wait a second, what are all the previous decisions that we made on short-term rentals? Ah, that's cool. That would have taken him 4 to 5 hours easily to just go back and do the search through the little toolbar, right, the field at the top of the website, and even then it didn't work half the time. That was a power use case. So we evolved from, all right, let's pull some data together, let's query it, to let's actually start building some documents that are worthwhile. But then, right, when you're a glutton for pain, you're like, let's start a company for local governments. What happens if you integrate GIS with it? Oh, now we get some fun stuff going on. All right, so this is my town AI. So I would say we do low-cost digital twins. I want to create the scenario where we pull this data together and allow a town to query against it and see the impacts of their decisions. Because I was like, gosh, do you know how many times I'm sitting in a city council meeting and we're talking about making a change and we have no idea what the actual impact is going to be? Wouldn't you like your public servants to be able to kind of have that information and that data available to them? Oh, okay, we see some snapping fingers over there. Yes is the answer. So that's what was something unique that I said, let's attach this to GIS data. If a jurisdiction wants to pull in their traffic, if they want to pull in their streets, great. But let's make this a kind of a civic intelligence platform. And so here is a quick, I'm going to give you a little an aside here. I did this video today as we just did a release drop and we didn't finish testing it all, so you're gonna see a little, of course, right? You're gonna see a little error here. But this is where I'd asked it to, hey, what can you build on 750 West 5th Street? And it says, oh, the tallest that you can build is like a 7-foot fence. How high of a fence? And it didn't go to the GIS, but here it actually does. So here now I'm gonna ask it, hey, can I redevelop 100 East 1st Street into a child care facility? So it's the GIS goes to the spot. Yes, we have some funny jokes in here. If you're in local government, you understand this. Parsing public meetings, sun caffeine, my town manager wrote that. And here now, it says, yes, you can, however, and this is the pain of local government code, you have to have a special review, meaning it's not a use by right. And this is where a lot of our residents get tripped up on code, is because it's not easy to read, it's not always clear, and so that was one of the things that I set out to do first, was can we at least just make this easier to understand? But then our next piece here that we're doing is we're venturing more into like, where exactly can I do a thing, right? You can look at a zoning map and you can get a good idea of where it goes in the zone, but what I wanted to do was make that automated as possible. So here I asked, where can I have a childcare facility? Childcare is a very difficult thing to nail down in a local government because you usually have distance rules. You have to be so far away from a brewery, from a dispensary. Things that get missed sometimes. And so here our system is saying, here are some of those viable spots. It goes and it's, you can go ahead and you can click on some of those spots as well in order to identify them. So here we've got a list. Oh, here play. We have a list of them, and here I am just kind of clicking through and understanding, oh, there's that 100 East 1st Street that I asked previously. So this idea that you can now ask whatever the thing is for economic development, spur business, right? This feasibility, we're sitting upstream from the whole permitting thing just to understand what you can do, it goes a long way. And now, this is my favorite part, because now we're starting to get into some of the simulations. This is Idaho Springs. Everyone knows where Idaho Springs is. Idaho Springs has a planner, a department of one. And he has such a hard time trying to get access to his own data. He said, Nicole, can you help me find where we could incentivize homeowners to build detached cottages, backyard cottages, also called ADUs. Help me find where those are viable places so I can go and incentivize these homeowners to build them. If he had done this manually, probably a year for him to figure this out. Or to apply for the grant, to then apply to go to the consultant, to then find out the information. And so we said, okay, we'll pull this stuff together. We're gonna give you a little bit of a matrix. This is where maybe some of these parcels are not feasible. In this situation, it says your lot size is too small, even though it fits the right zoning. But then as I was building this out, because I vibe code all of our features, I said, oh my gosh, you know what the power move here is? What if we built in a policy advisor? And what I mean by this is, what if I gave folks the ability to change their policy and to see the effects of it? And so here, I've asked, what if we reduce the minimum lot size requirement to 5,000 square feet for all residential zones? And blue now means newly feasible, green means it's still feasible, and then red, we actually tripped up some of the feasibility. It made it infeasible. This is not available to folks like me in city council right now. I'm just gonna let you know. If we try to decide hey, let's change a policy from 5,000, we have no way to visualize what that impact is. But my hope is that by pulling this data together, this is data, public data that we already have access to, but putting it in a meaningful way, local governments can then start to build some of these simulations or these prototypes for themselves. And so here I ask, what's the single most important impactful policy change we could make? And it comes back to the minimum lot sizes. And that was My Town AI. So now let's go to the vibe coding. What are local governments doing? How are they actually using vibe coding? This is a little city budget planner. This is out of Oak Harbor, Washington. And the director of finance loves AI. And so he built this budget simulator so that residents could come in, adjust the budget, and they could see the impact of what happens when they do that. So for instance, it might impact safety, it might impact satisfaction, it might impact the economy, but it's a way for him to communicate with the residents in terms of where these dollars are going. So this is one, again, like one of the very first vibe-coded sessions, but the other one that comes up a lot are like dashboards, right? Very simple, easy use case for local governments to start doing. This is a strategic planning sort of dashboard that was built out of Lebanon, New Hampshire. And Melanie, who's the director of innovation and AI over there, basically wanted to pull this dashboard together so that residents could have at their fingertips the information that they needed to know how it's progressing in the strategic plan. So if I were to leave you with power moves that I've learned, because I am both in the local government, but I am also developing for local government. And I think one of my first power moves is put your SME in the driver's seat and prototype those features in hours. We saw that through like the product and AI, but I'm the first customer. I'm the subject matter expert. And there is no better competitive advantage than that. If I get to be able to do that first set of features and then hand it off to my engineering team to put it into production. So if that's not something that you all are doing yet and don't have that SME, almost to the point that some of our local governments are putting these Claude codes and these vibe coding tools in front of a subject matter expert and then handing it off to the vendor to say, please develop. I said this in front of, it was at your last group, I said this in front of one of the NVIDIA guys, and he's like, oh my gosh, you're going to save us billions if you can teach all the local government folks to vibe code. And I was like, hold on, I've got too many projects, but it's like that, okay, it definitely resonates. For us in local government, doing the graduating to the higher risk and higher impact use cases worked well for me, right? It was start small, start putting AI over local government data. It's public data. And so this high risk group, or this group that was more risk averse, starting small and starting in that way was a good first step for them to become comfortable and then to graduate into some of these higher risk use cases. And then of course, this is always the same, but if you can, remove the friction of buying. I am actually, because I know this group so well, I'm actually starting to experiment with more of a product-led. People would say, you can never do product-led in local government. They've got procurement rules and this and that. But if you set it up for them and they have their T's and C's, their terms and conditions, and they have the ability to download an invoice and send it to their lawyer and send it to procurement, you can maybe even jumpstart or work around some of those things as well. Because they do want to use your product, but you just got to work with them and know where they're coming from. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. That was amazing. I don't think we built her up too much, did we? I mean, could every public servant be more like Nicole? Public servant / entrepreneur / vibe coder. Really, you rocked it. Thank you. And so I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but Nicole is Mayor Pro Tem, as she indicated, and is going up for, right, you're on the ballot for Mayor non-Pro Tem, which is usually just called Mayor, in November. And
April.
What? Next month?
It's local government. We don't make sense. It's in April.
Okay. Anyone here in Netherlands? Vote for Nicole. All right.
You're in Eldora?
Nice. Okay. Well, awesome. And I'd like to introduce our third speaker tonight. His name is Davyd Smith. And for nearly 7 years, Davyd has been the Director of IT in the Office of the Governor for the state of Colorado. In this role, he has been leading the charge for responsible AI adoption across our fine state. Previous to this, Davyd spent more than 2 decades in technology, in telephony, satellite, consumer goods, and more. He's an entrepreneur at heart who has built companies in 5 different industries and served on numerous boards, including multiple AI organizations. He also happens to be the president of No Kill Colorado. He's a tireless advocate for rescue animals, and he has a house full of pets to prove it. He therefore asks that you please excuse any stray fur that happens to be on his clothing. And with that, please welcome Davyd Smith. Is your mic working? No, I don't know. You asked them.
Is mic working? No. Is mic working? Yes. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. Had the wrong one. So interesting, sad story about my friend Phil, because I've known Phil a very long time. And I actually checked this today, Phil. You and I met in a different century. That's how old we are.
It was a great decade, though.
It was very good. Hi, everybody, I'm Davyd Smith. I am an IT director at the state of Colorado. Phil said and it sounds like I'm the only one. There are other IT directors out there that I work with. And I've been working for almost 3 years now on AI at the state of Colorado. It's not the only thing I do, but I've been involved in that and leading and kind of establishing our governance and our policy and our implementations with an idea of human at the helm. We all hear human in the loop. You may have heard of human in the helm, human in the middle. We really like human at the helm. We want to make sure that we're still using the idea that people have to be there helping make decisions in government, whether they're using the software or not. You still need people to actually make those decisions in the end. So the state of Colorado, if you don't know, has about 40,000 employees. We serve 5.2 million residents, 600,000 businesses. There's 18 consolidated agencies that they fall under the governor, and then there's an additional 10 or more that actually don't things like, obviously, the judicial branch, legislative branch, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Treasurer. Most of those secondary, and they're not secondary, they're secondary to the governor, branches, actually, those are where I'm IT director for, what's called the non-consolidated agencies. So November 22, ChatGPT, that kind of started this entire trend that we're actually seeing today. And we didn't jump right into it. We were kind of a second mover, as Nicole was talking about, but we did do some things right away. In 2023, we started talking about it. We thought, okay, we need to worry about governance and policy. We have to worry about innovation, and we have to worry about literacy of our workforce. If this is going to come, all three of those things were going to be really important. Oh, I didn't move. Yeah, I did. Okay. I thought I was still on a different one. I'm not watching that. So we worked on that literacy, and then the governance policy, we worked on risk assessment, and we built that originally on the NIST AI framework. That goes much more beyond that today, but that's where we started. The first thing we decided to do wasn't until really into 2024. And that was, if you remember, back then, there was something called BARD, and it slowly morphed into something called Gemini. And we happen to be onto the Google Suite already. That's what the state of Colorado has standardized on. Everyone gets Google Suite when they get a job there. So it's kind of made sense to look at what Google was doing to actually kind of dip our feet into the waters here. And so we looked at Gemini and we decided, you know what? Let's do a pilot. Let's check that out. So we got 150 different participants from across 18 agencies. And what we did was we met with them every week. We had training going on every week. They had to actually give us 3 use cases a week. Doesn't sound like that much, but they had to give us 3. How did you use it? I use it to draft an email. I use it to create a program template. I used it to look at my project and make a status so that we could actually see how they were doing it. But at the end of a 90-day with 150 people, we had over 2,000 use cases that we could take and look at. And with those, we kind of did some sentiment analysis, like Nicole was talking about. We looked at the things that they were using most. We looked at how much time they felt they were saving. And we had taken polls before and after on what they were doing. And we learned a lot of things. Productivity, and this is all self-reported. They felt that productivity, 74% of users said it increased, or work quality increased. Their focus increased. Their well-being, I'm going to come back to that, increased. And their literacy went from about 8.5% to 42.6% on artificial intelligence. That pilot made us realize, okay, we have something here that could actually help our workforce in a big way. I want to get back to that 69% of well-being, because there's a lot going on there. One of the coolest things we learned is we had a small group of folks that had some kind of challenge, sight challenge, hearing challenge, cognitive challenge, that were actually in the pilot. And their success rate was phenomenal. It was amazing, and the stories were incredibly heartwarming as well. But what we found was we had a tool that could help people that we were trying to help with other tools up until then, but nothing did it like this. They felt more engaged with their teams. They felt they were communicating better. They were communicating more simply because they felt more comfortable. And that was one of the coolest things that came out of there. And then we started rolling out. And today, we have over 5,600 people using Gemini. They do have to take a 2-hour training course in order to actually start using it. And then we have optional training as well, which we'll talk about. Whoops. But first, I wanted to talk a little about risk assessment. So that was another part of us, right? The literacy was one. We had governance and policy where risk assessment fell under there. And this is not our risk assessment. This is like a beginner's page, okay? It's much more involved in that. We don't have time to go through all that tonight, but I did want to talk about this. Depending on what you're doing out there, this could be a really useful, simple graph, especially at government. When we're looking at something from a high level, we have internal users, we have external users. We have internal information, we have public information. And those have a different level of risk on each side. So the easy one is, we have something for internal users. I made something with Notebook. How many people use Notebook LM? All right, so you either used it or you're probably familiar with it. I made something really simple. If you go to the OIT site for Colorado, you can find all the Colorado information security policies. They're all out there, they're public, anyone can look at them, we put them out there so vendors know what they have to comply to. I took all of those, I put those in a Notebook LM, and now, because I get those questions every day from one of my agencies. Hey Dave, I'm going out of the country, can I take my device? And I know that pretty much no, but there's always exceptions. So I go in there and I can ask the notebook, hey, I'm leaving the country, can I take my state device? And it gives me the answer in seconds, which used to take me minutes. That doesn't sound like a lot, but I was doing it every day. So it's probably saving me 15 minutes a week. And if 10 other IT directors are using it, we're talking about hours every week that we're saving from that simple app. And it's also less annoying than going through 20 documents and hundreds of pages and trying to find the answer to those questions. Anyway, that's the low risk one, right? At the top left. And then moderate is basically you're going to the public with public information. There's still risk there because we have hallucinations. We don't want to lie to the public. We have to be really cautious of how we do that. But we can do that. And we just have to understand the risk and understand how we have to test it to get there. And then we have internal users that can use more sensitive data. They do that today, right? If you work at the DMV, you actually have access to people's information because you need it in order to renew their license, that kind of thing. But is there something that we can use in AI that would actually be useful there? That's moderate risk. Where we get into the higher risk in this simple graph, as I said, risk assessments are more complex than this. It's when I go to the public and I'm going with sensitive information. I'm letting someone come into a chatbot that may actually be talking about child benefits, their child's benefits. So I have to actually credential them. I have to know their identity. I have to make sure I'm only looking at the information they have access to and bring it back. And then I have to make sure that information is actually accurate. So I really like this because it's a nice beginner for the risk assessment. There's a lot of the things you should think about, but it's a good place to start to understand where you are from the basics on that. So today, through our risk assessment process, we have assessed 281 requests from agencies. Every agency comes to us with their requests if they want to use any AI. It goes to the AI engineers, much smarter people than I am. They actually look and drill down. I look at that first chart. They do a lot of other stuff. And we've done 281. We've approved 220. 61 are under evaluation or withdrawn. We actually haven't turned one down yet. So that's that 22% is actually either they changed their mind, no, you know what, we're not gonna do it. Thanks for approving it. Or, you know, we're still reevaluating. Maybe we gave them risks and mitigations to look at and they're thinking about it. But we haven't turned down anything. The only thing that we prohibited the state of Colorado is you can't use deepseek.com. And that doesn't mean you can't use DeepSeek. We didn't have a problem with that. We had a problem with deepseek.com because that's different, right? This public site that they're going to and what that LLM is doing behind the scenes. So the status of the approved projects that we were just talking about, we have 125 in production, 82 are in planning, and 6 of those were withdrawn. So even though it was approved and they started going forward, they realized somewhere along the way, this is not going to be useful, it doesn't have our ROI, or we simply, maybe found another risk that we don't like with it. But we're moving forward with a lot of these. And they fall into 3 categories. The ones are really simple. It could be, I want to use ChatGPT, or I want to use Grammarly. Those are in there with all of these. Then we have Salesforce is one of the standards that we use across the state in a lot of ways. We use ServiceNow, we use some other, AWS and GCP and other things like that. So those are things that we use every day already, and we're just kind of adding in an AI component. The last one is something brand new and custom made, sometimes by a third party, sometimes internally, but it's completely made. So, we have those 3 categories inside here. So 300 altogether, I think, of everything that's in the queue and what's been approved. But some of them are a little easier than others. Figuring out a Grammarly is a little easier than figuring out can we actually give somebody a benefit, which we don't do today. We're really looking at how to do that in a safe and smart way. We work across the nation with states and communities and localities as well, everywhere we can. But these are just some of the ones we do. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of you probably belong to them. Nicole is a big part of GovAI Coalition, GovTech, Center for Civic Futures, Innovate US, NACIO. These are the ones I happen to go to every month. I'm not saying they're the best. They're the ones I wound up getting wrapped up in there. I wanted to give you some names out there, but really reach out to these or others like them. There is so much good information out there. There's too much. I wish I could go to all of them. I can't. But these are the ones I do go to. Like I said, they're not the best, but if you never heard of them, maybe you check them out. So where are we going now? That was our 1.0 and where we actually got to and what we were doing. And it was really wrapped around the literacy part and the governance and policy part, which was really mostly wrapped inside the risk assessment. We had that innovation piece, which we did with Gemini. We did that pilot, and then we started rolling out to everyone. And I think that was incredibly important, because what we need is our workforce to understand this. The workforce has got to get this in order for us to do anything else. Because you could bring a big project down to your employees and say, hey, we're going to do this, it's going to change the world. If they don't understand it, we're not going to be as successful. And a lot of the people there are the ones that have the most knowledge of where we have the problems that we actually have to solve. And they can bring those forward. And then we go, oh, that's the idea. But if we don't help them understand what AI is in the first place, because it's hard for a lot of people, they're either not comfortable with it, or they don't get where it is, or they're afraid of it. And we have to bring them there to know enough so that we can be responsible and do the right thing as we move forward as government. So now we're looking at how we take what we've learned and how we scale our staff better, right? We have to find the repeatable processes that we do every day. In government, there's a lot of repeatable processes that you do. They're mundane, and when I say mundane, I don't mean unimportant. They're important, but they're boring, and if we can automate them in a way that we couldn't automate them before, this is the time to do that. And if we do that, we can start focusing on delivering exceptional service in ways we never could, because we could do more field work instead of that back office work that was maybe taking us 90% of our time and doing 10% of field work. What if we could get rid of 40, 50% of that and spend 50% of our time doing field work? We can actually do much better as government if we have that opportunity. I do want to, this is a pitch, and it's half an AI pitch and half just a Colorado pitch. If you don't have this application, it's called My Colorado. You can get it on your phone, Android, iPhone. I really recommend you get it. You set it up with your driver's license and your face, and it kind of is helping us get a single identity for people across the state. And this is going to be one of the main kind of vehicles for us to provide AI to our constituents in the future. We're working on several things right now. We've already done some things inside that application that have helped us make it better. Now we're looking at how it makes everyone in Colorado's life better. So if you don't have it, check it out. I use it every day. I use it as my ID for virtually everything. I don't get carded since the beard went gray, but you know, I used it at a bank the other day, and they accepted it. The state police have to accept it. Not that you want to be talking to them too often, but local police don't have to. They can, but they don't have to. So it can't be used everywhere, but it is a legal state ID that you actually get off there. So our 2.0 already started. I'm kind of out of time, but I've talked about most of this. These are some of the use cases. I didn't want to go through a lot of them. We had the Office of Sustainability automate the entry of thousands of utility bill records. They used to be manually put in, and it didn't just take time, but humans don't type 100% perfectly. I know I don't. So we actually got great work there. Colorado's health and care policy changed a new hire classroom time from 5 to 3 weeks. I mean, that's huge. That's just one agency and one program, saving $350,000 annually. The Colorado Department of Law and Employment, CDLE, cut costs in a call center wait times for one of their programs by 50%. These are all good for us in the state. It's good for our workforce for these things to happen, and it's actually good for all of Colorado. And I will end there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was terrific. Bear with me one moment. I will get to introducing our next speaker. How is that even possible? I was like, wait, am I running out of battery? Let's see. Well, she's plugged in.
Where's this guy going?
I don't know. She's plugged in. Is she in this? No, she's here.
We're going to try this. Let's do this one here and then put that one. Do you want to try different?
What's that?
I don't think that's
okay.
It.
Here, let's input this one. Oh, nope, that doesn't work.
Okay. So where does this? This is your charger. You can try this. Can you try to plug your charger into here? No. I don't think that's just the charger. Just the charger. Okay, now you're charging, and now you got this. And now can we get this guy in that dongle? Oh my gosh, look at this. Sweet. Do you have the clicker?
Is there a slide? Does it work? You're going to presentation mode, and while you're doing that,
Yeah? You got it?
I'll just see if this advances.
Miracles do happen. In the age of technology,
Hey,
we're
Bobby.
still struggling with
Bobby.
simple things like power. And check that out, that's not working. All right. Well, while these gentlemen are working on the technology, I'm going to work on introducing our next speaker. Hopefully by the time I'm done telling you about him, he is ready to go. So far, it has been a fascinating conversation, right? About very specific use cases.
Okay.
And now we're going to shift the conversation a little bit with our next speaker. So Bill Quinn is a futurist. That is his actual job title.
That's fine.
With Tata Consultancy Services. Tata Consultancy Services is a global leader that is recognized by Fortune as one of the world's most admired companies. But Bill doesn't just theorize about the future from a boardroom. He beta tests it. For example, to prepare for the New York City Marathon, he built a digital twin of himself, using AI and wearables to turn his own biology into a responsive, data-driven system. How cool is that? And so he brings that same systems thinking to our discussion on smart cities. Bill understands that a smart city isn't just about adding more sensors. It's about the convergence of technology, economics, and governance. And he advises Global 2000 leaders and governments on the mobility ecosystem, showing how autonomous vehicles, for example, and mobility as a service will not only change how we move, but will fundamentally disrupt municipal budgets, maybe, parking infrastructure, and land use. So from navigating a lot of different things, Bill is here to help us connect the dots and unlearn maybe the rigid systems of the past. So please join me in welcoming Bill Quinn.
Thanks, everybody. Is this on? You guys hear me? Yeah? Man, you do your homework. None of that was in my bio, so that's impressive. Well, thanks, everybody. Really excited to be presenting. I'm a longtime member of RMAIIG, so it's fun to be up here presenting to everybody. So I'm going to take the perspective of kind of thinking about what's the future of smart cities? Where are we headed with all of this? And we're going to start by doing a little bit of a history lesson, because I love this quote from Winston Churchill: the further backward you look, the further forward you can see. And I think we can learn a lot from history about where smart cities might be going. So what does history tell us about the future? We're going to frame this in the context of the growth of knowledge. And the growth of knowledge is really what allowed us to develop general purpose technologies, which we'll talk more about in a little bit, as well as convergence, again, something else that we'll be talking more about throughout the presentation. And all of these things really elevated our human capacity. But here's one of the things we need to remember about human capacity. We're a stubborn lot. We don't like change unless change is really kind of forced upon us. And so that's good for all of us to remember. And I love to sort of counter that notion, this quote from a futurist named Alvin Toffler. He wrote a book really back in the 70s, a long time ago. But he said, the illiterate of the 21st century won't be those who can't read or write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn, and do that over and over again throughout our lives, throughout our careers. And that's why I love groups like RMAIIG, because that's what we're all collectively doing together, unlearning and relearning together as a collective. So as knowledge grows, so did our capacity to invent and unlock technologies that really unleashed entire new systems. And the best example of that is this period of time from about 1870 to 1940, the Second Industrial Revolution. And it was this period of time where lots of general purpose technologies were invented, but most importantly, the internal combustion engine, electricity, and the telephone were invented. And so it ushered in this period of massive transformation. And it's important for us to realize, though, that when those technologies were made available, they weren't just sort of fully formed and on our doorstep and we're using them everywhere all the time, right? These things take time to roll out. And so if we look at sort of the history of that, we really started out with the mechanical city. So, gas lamps lit our streets, horse-drawn carriages got us around, manufacturing plants were powered by steam engines, using dirty coal to power all of those. And then when electricity, telephone, et cetera, came along, we had this sort of electrified facade. Some buildings were electrified, others weren't. We started to see trolley cars moving along the streets. But it wasn't until we started to have broader applications of this technology that we started to see the connected city, where we saw subways that were moving in concert to get people around, that we were able to talk to people around the world. All of the electricity was available to us all the time. And that led us to kind of our understanding of what the modern metropolis is, really, the city that never sleeps, right? We can go anywhere, we can do anything we want just about any time of day. And that took 40 years. So this was not just an overnight sensation. It really takes time to roll these technologies out, for people to understand them, to absorb them, and in that period of time in particular, for the infrastructure to get built out. So then we fast forward a little bit. We're now in the 1950s leading up to the time that we're in right now, and in particular the last handful of years, we're really in this AI age. And so we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean? Where is the future going with this new world of AI? And we like to recommend that people do this by rehearsing the future. And I say rehearsing the future very specifically, as opposed to predicting the future, because prediction is really kind of a fool's errand. As a futurist, I think a lot of people think that we make predictions about the future. And the reality is things are moving too fast, they're too complex for us to really be able to make accurate predictions. So we talk about rehearsing the future, and we do that through what-if questions. And I love this quote from another futurist named Amy Webb. She says, if we ask what-if questions today, we can avoid asking what-now questions in the future. And I think that's a really powerful way to think about it. So one example, what if artificial intelligence becomes a massive general purpose technology, and what if the answer is yes? And so what does that mean for how these things are going to roll out? And we'll use the city as an example. So kind of the current state, the world that we've all grown up in and lived in it's the reactive city. And it's all the things that the previous speakers were talking about. We found out about potholes because somebody called it in. We found out about traffic accidents because somebody called it in. The power goes down, we rush to fix it. But we didn't know about it until it had already happened. And already, you can see the presentations that were just talked about. We're already at this point of point solutions. There's lots of things going on, and all of these solutions are coming online. And that's really exciting. I mean, we're talking about, not even 4 years yet, and we're already implementing all of these point solutions. So again, gives you an idea of how fast this is all moving. But that's really just the beginning. What we really need is moving towards broader applications where we have the coordinated city, where all of these systems start talking amongst one another and to one another so that we can do that broader coordination so that traffic lights can sense that traffic motion or movements are changing, and they can all dynamically make changes in real time to keep traffic flowing appropriately. And then we'll eventually reach this point where we're at system level change, and these capabilities, this technology is everywhere all the time, and we don't even notice it. In the same way today that we don't notice electricity unless it goes out like it did a few weeks ago with the wind. So you don't notice it until it's there, and that's how you know that we're at that sort of ambient city situation. How long is that going to take? I mean, you can see all of the things that are being done already. I don't think 15 years is out of the realm of possibility at all. Again, it's really impossible to predict when this will happen, but I think it's safe to say it's going to happen a lot sooner than it did in the last period of great transformation that we saw. We also need to remember that AI is a big part of this. It really dominates the conversation, but it's not the only part of the conversation. There's a number of other really powerful technologies that are out there that are going to have a big impact on smart cities. Renewable energy, advanced materials, and 4 that I think can be general purpose technologies in and of themselves: synthetic biology, quantum computing, nanotech, and humanoid robotics. We just a few months ago, had humanoid robots right here in this room. For those of you that were here, that was a lot of fun. And I think it's really interesting to see how fast this technology is moving. I'm going to show you a video, and it's a video of a festival that they have every year in China. And it's a big deal, and they've started introducing humanoid robots to take part in the festival activities in this presentation that they do. And I want you to look at last year's 2025 compared to this year's 2026, and how vastly improved the dynamicism of these robots are from one year to the next. Let's have a look. So again, a great example of how fast things are moving right now, and a fun way to think about it. So the way that we like to talk to our clients about thinking about the future is breaking it down into smaller pieces. Because again, looking 10 years, 20 years out is really, it just becomes impossible to make anything actionable. And so we've settled on this time horizon of about 6 years that we work with our clients. To really understand where the future is going so that we can make it very actionable for them. And we use this tool, we call it our convergence model. And what it's designed to do is look at all of the things that are going on across multiple domains: science and technology, society, geopolitics, economics, the environment, and philosophy, and understand all of those things individually, but also, more importantly, understand the convergence of how these things are coming together to rapidly change our emerging future and really get that sort of multiplier effect. And that's convergence across domains as well as the individual things inside each of those domains. And AI is certainly an accelerant to all of this. We've seen AI be a massive accelerant to a lot of the things that we're tracking along the way. The other thing that we look at a lot are constraints. And constraints happen when human capacity can't keep up, and so control starts to shift to the system itself. And when we look at big civilizational type transitions from hunter-gatherer to agricultural societies and so on, it was these constraints that really propelled us forward. Again, we're a stubborn species. We don't like change, but sometimes change is forced upon us because of these constraints. And now we find ourselves in this new age. I like to call it the biointelligence age, because it's not just a conversation about technology, it's also science. And things like synthetic biology that are really going to play a big role in this emerging future. And so understanding those constraints and how they affect things. So we start with a baseline year. Right now we're in 2026, so we use last year as our baseline to have observed pressures that are coming into the system. And then from there, we can build what we call possibility chains to identify all of the things that could play out across that 6-year time horizon. And it's important to understand that we look at every year individually so that we understand how pressure in this year creates a change in the following year, and then a new pressure that forms creates yet another change. Because if you split out that piece in the middle, you miss all of that and you come to the wrong conclusion by the time you get to 2031. And so we can identify these, and what they coalesce into are individual pathways. So we have pathway categories that we'll talk about in a minute, and then each of the pathways are specific areas that we look at that we can work with our clients to think about, how is the future going to sort of move across in a particular area that's relevant to them. And we work with clients across industries. We also work with state and local governments around the world. We're actually doing a few smart city implementations in places like Ireland and in Singapore. So really exciting stuff, but we do it by looking at these pathways. And so we'll use smart city as an example. We have our 6-year convergence model, and then from there we have these pathway categories. And with each of these, we have to understand that there's both upsides and downsides. This was talked about earlier. These things might seem like great ideas, but then when they get out into the real world, they can cause real problems. And so we'll talk about just a few of these to give you a sense of what's there. So cities transformed, urban systems coming to life. A lot of really exciting things going on. But the downside of that is unregulated robots disrupting work and public trust. Seems like we're reading a lot about that lately, so a good example of it. But the upside is the opportunity to have seamless mobility and cooling systems that improve equity and livability, not just for some of us, but for all of us. Let's have a look at what that might be like.
Faster every day. Some memories refuse to fade. By 2031, travel isn't about tickets or transfers. It's one continuous path, guiding us back to the places that shaped us. Corridors once built for speed now carry something deeper. Language, memory, tradition, flowing between people like light. And in that embrace, we discover that home is not a place on a map. It is a place that remembers us. In 2031, mobility doesn't separate culture from modern life. It carries it forward. Shared, protected, renewed. Movement becomes medicine, not to escape the world, but to return to the parts of ourselves we left behind. In the mobility world of 2031, we don't just travel farther, we travel truer. Mobility becomes meaning, culture becomes connection, and every journey brings us back to who we are.
As an aside, that's a video that we put together to talk about this. We call them vignettes, and it used to take us weeks to put those together. We would use an outside agency, and now that's the voice of one of my coworkers. We use 11 Labs to replicate her voice, and we're able to put all of that together, the script using AI and so on, in about a day and a half. So a good example of how AI is accelerating things in a lot of different areas. Okay, next, engines of growth. So the next industrial foundations, and what might those look like, and where can they come and really benefit society, but also potentially downsides. So certain regions might remain resilient on fossil fuels and outdated industries, and those communities end up falling further and further behind. And we're already seeing those communities falling behind. Does this exacerbate the problems that they're seeing even today? But On the upside, standards set by cities become global benchmarks. So all of the work that you saw today that's happening here locally in the Denver, Boulder, and sort of Colorado area can serve as a benchmark that other states can start to adopt. Throughout the United States, we can adopt, and eventually globally. That's pretty exciting to think about. And the fact that we really, as a community, are pretty far on the leading edge of that, I think. Life reimagined, so life itself getting redesigned. What are the downsides there? Well, one is regenerative health and fertility widens that privilege gap. So the distance between the haves and the have-nots, which of course we're already seeing today, gets widened even further. But the upside is that wellness and active living could become a civic identity, something that we see in Boulder a lot today, but these smart city technologies could really accelerate that. So then we get down into the individual pathways and look at what the opportunities are there as we look across the years. And the first is the ambient learning ecosystem. So how could learning become something that's all around us all the time?
A student opens their tablet. Every fact they could ever need is already there. Instant, searchable, and free. But class isn't about memorizing facts anymore. Today's challenge: redesign their city's water system. AI generates models and case studies in seconds, but it can't decide what's fair or whose needs come first. At the center is their teacher, not lecturing, not grading, guiding, asking the harder questions. Who benefits? Who's left out? What will this choice mean 10 years from now? By the end, no one has memorized a single fact. Instead, they've practiced judgment, collaboration, and imagination, the things machines can't do. In a world where knowledge is everywhere, learning has become something rarer. The art of making meaning together.
And the vision there is that education is not just something that you do when you're young and then you move off and start your career and never see it again. It becomes a community learning center where people are constantly coming in and having the opportunity to get access to education systems so that they can reskill themselves, and we can all start learning from one another. And then eventually we have sort of ambient learning around the city. So as we're walking down the city streets, we can look at a church and learn about its history and what their belief structure is for that particular religion. We can look at a museum and see what's inside and learn about all of the artifacts and artwork that they might have inside the building. So really getting to that system level change. And then finally, digital twins. What happens when digital twins are controlling all of the systems that are going on to keep a city humming?
The lights didn't go out all at once. They flickered first. Not because we ran out of energy, but because the rhythm changed. At the control center, Maya once watched predictable curves. Morning rise, evening fall. She planned around them. Now the lines move like weather. A cloud dims a solar field 3 states away. A heat wave wakes every air conditioner. Thousands of cars plug in at 6:12, not 6 o'clock. The grid doesn't wait anymore. It responds in seconds. At first, the software suggested shifts. Maya approved. Then one cold snap, it moved before she could. Batteries discharged, thermostats eased, charging slowed. No one noticed. The lights stayed on. Maya no longer pulls levers. She watches thresholds. We didn't lose control, we just moved it. Now the grid balances itself.
So just a few of the ways in the short time we had today to talk about this sort of movement towards what I think is going to ultimately end up being the ambient city powered by artificial intelligence. So that's it for me today. Thanks, everybody. Would love to connect with you on LinkedIn if you would like. And I think we're going to move to Q&A now.
All right, if all speakers want to come up and take a seat.
I promise the chairs are not electrified.
Should I leave this on, or are we going to pass the mic?
Oh. Yeah, maybe pass the mic.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? 2 of us are going to.
Yeah.
Dan knows.
Old man in another century.
It was the 90s, bro.
I went on LinkedIn to make sure I was right.
There's 2.
Okay, we're going to start Q&A. I'm just going to kick off the first question. Are any nonprofits or cities running hackathons where citizens can come and help use AI to help problems that cities have? Any of the speakers?
Do you know of residents actually hacking?
Well, we're all resident of somewhere.
But no, like residents actually hacking for their city?
Not with AI, no. I mean, more traditional hackathons for sure, but I haven't seen, what I want to do, and maybe people in this audience can help soon, is to do a vibe coding type of thing where we do have experts that come and help cities to design things quickly.
This was something that we talked about with my town manager up in Nederland, is eventually being able to do this with our residents and have them solve for a problem and let them sort of vibe code for it. So I think it's closer probably than we think.
Raise your hand if you have a question. Phil, do you want to walk around the other lav mic? Okay, question here in the middle.
Is anyone working with real estate developers doing large-scale mixed-use projects, the equivalent of Google Alphabet's attempt a few years ago with Sidewalk Labs, where they embedded healthcare, smart city technology, water, sewer infrastructure, building systems, the whole 9 yards?
Yes. I mean, that project, in Quayside in Toronto was quite unique. I think the entire industry learned a lot from the mistakes that were made there in terms of governance, data ownership, and the things that made those Canadians quite skeptical about Google. But ultimately, I mean, the concepts that were there have absolutely been embedded in other major greenfield new developments. I mean, I've consulted personally on multiple here in just the Colorado region that want to take certain elements of that because, and then you have the whole industry of, former tech executives trying to build their own cities because they feel like, governance is too restrictive of what technology can do. So there's a new flavor of it, but property developers have taken that model and are absolutely embedding technology in new development in similar ways.
And just for my town AI, we have been reached out to by a few real estate developers who, because I think local government and real estate developers sit on both sides of a workflow and of information that they need. And so it is interesting, even though I developed specifically for local government, I will get the outreach from real estate developers and also consultants to local governments who don't want to spend the time to collect the data. If there's already a system that has the data for them, they're like, let's go with that. So it's been interesting.
Okay, next question right up there in the front.
If I could give you a mathematical framework today that gives you a wrapper for any model AI system right now that would make any AI system that you run immune to prompt injections, jailbreaks, sycophancy, dyadic loops, down to the land hour limit, would you take it?
Is this free?
I don't control a budget, so I couldn't say yes to that. That would be very interesting to see, though, and understand, because that would have to be tested.
So I will say all of our towns that go through My Town AI, they have to try to break the system. So they actually have to prompt inject it and do all the things that you would expect an AI system to not be able to handle. So far we've done okay, but like David, I would say I'm always open to see more.
Okay, next question in the back here.
Hi, great presentations, by the way. I'm looking at the smart city presentations, and I'm looking at all of these automated systems where people do not have to engage in government, and work schedules interface that you would normally have with the public becomes more distant. So don't all of these systems really disenfranchise the population, the public, that you're supposed to be serving, instead of increasing the engagement so that they can make better decisions on elections and selections of their public officials?
I think that's a great point. And I did say something that I do want to point out again. I was saying let's replace the repeatable, mundane things, which are not interacting with people, right? Because we do a lot of those things and we spend a lot of that time. What we do want to see is if we can move those to the side and do more field work, which is exactly what you're talking about, actually engaging with the public. Quite often, it's actually marginalized groups that are the ones that we have the hardest time getting to because we don't have the time, because we do have to do those things. As I said, mundane, I didn't mean unimportant. They're important, they have to be done. It'd be nice to just get rid of them, but we can't. But if we can actually automate them through any solution, artificial intelligence, and this is a hope, this is, we're not there yet. But then we can actually engage the public in a way we didn't before. Because a lot of people don't want to talk directly to us, right? They actually, I'm actually one of those people. If I can renew my license online, I'm not going to the DMV. But there are times that we do want to engage. So can we make the time to engage people through other solutions that are not, pushing people away, but they're actually giving us more time with them? That's where I want to see us go. That's where we're talking about going at the state.
Yeah, and I would say sort of taking that from the other perspective, right, from the citizens' interest in communicating with state and local government, when they're not having to call about potholes and all the rest of it, right, they get to engage in a more meaningful way as well. So rather than spending their time and their mental cycles thinking about the mundane things that they need to call on, they can think at a higher level and engage at a higher level, with their governments, on the things that they really care about.
Number 2 on my slide of the major themes that we work on, because our governments ask us for help with, is citizen engagement. In fact, there are a ton of technology tools out there that can improve that interaction, and I'll give you one example. There's a process called participatory budgeting that's quite new, where in the case of, let's just say, a Parks and Rec department, which is what the city of Denver has done, they have $1 million budget to improve parks. You actually go out to the people, survey them for ideas of what they would want in that park. AI helps them develop those into real projects with real costs that get verified by the staff. And then those projects actually go back out to the people, and there's a democratic voting process to determine what projects get funded and what projects don't. So there are a lot of examples like that, but I agree it's a really important thing that government needs to be very aware of, that private industry doesn't have the same weight around.
And the only thing I'd add is that because I'm like a boots on the ground type of local government person, I would rather use technology and or AI on the back end so that when I'm face to face and we're asking how do we actually solve this problem, it's meaningful. And that's where most of our local government officials are spending their time. And the rest of the mundane stuff, as David said, is being crunched in the background. I want that face-to-face interaction to be meaningful.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it, the way that I'm looking at it today is that as we move forward with these technologies in the initial phases, we're going to end up with something like automatic phone systems where you're being stuck and put into these buckets. And if you don't fit within that bucket, you cannot engage. And that I find as a significant issue and problem with these systems.
Yeah, and that's why folks like me start building, is because I don't want it to end up like that either.
So in the interest of time, I think we'll move on to the next question.
Let's, yeah, we've got one in the back over here.
So speaking about the many technology tools out there, I'm curious how you view tactically the role of some of the legacy software platforms that you may have used over the past, 3 to 5 years, especially, as you think about AI enablement. Are they a partner in that journey? Are they at risk of being completely replaced by internal or AI native tools? And in particular, I'm thinking about some of that kind of backbone, the ERP solutions, those sort of core budgeting solutions, maybe the stuff less so maybe it is relevant for citizen engagement, but even sort of operationally, how do you think about those vendors and the role they play, if any, in the future?
I think most of the enterprise software partners that we have today are all engaging us. They don't feel obsolete. They feel like they're actually doing the things that need to be improved in software to get there. I don't know what that's actually going to do across the, I don't know how hard it's going to be for smaller vendors. A lot of ones I'm talking about, we're probably going to need AWS and GCP and Azure and those guys. But Bob's scheduling app, I don't know how well that's going to do, right, going forward. Because I haven't coded in 15 years, but I could build that this weekend if I wanted to, right? So it is a little scary in that way because I'm not sure where it's going. But I actually haven't seen anything get replaced yet, or even the talk of it.
Yeah, and I would say that we all have to appreciate, and especially when you work, I spent 15 years of my career in startups, and then I went and worked with a giant company who works with other giant companies. And I think, and state and local governments are the same way, those systems are really deeply embedded into workflows and processes and all of that. And so, there's a lot of talk about them being replaced, and that may or may not happen. I can't make a prediction on that, but I do know that there's a lot of stuff that's embedded in those systems, and those companies are not naive to the fact that AI is here, right? And so they're running very fast in that direction as well. So I think to the degree that they do get disrupted, it's not going to be tomorrow.
Just real quickly, I'm seeing AI integrate those systems, not replace them, at least not yet.
And they're looking at small startups to acquire them.
Okay, I'm afraid we only have 2 minutes left. We have a question here in the back.
I'll be very quick. We're talking about moving fast, digital twins, agentic automation, which seems like the natural first step in automating everything that we've already done. Where have you guys seen, or are there particular technologies around observability so that as things accelerate in this direction, we still have kind of cognitive oversight in a way that humans can track the 7 things at a time and have AI present it? Are there particular ways you guys are kind of making sure that the agents and automations are doing the things they're supposed to do and observing edge cases fast versus, oh, I didn't realize it was going to do that? Which seems the real danger in governance and et cetera?
Yeah, that was actually, so when I was running my tool, My Town AI, I'm sure some of you saw like the execution plan and what was actually happening. That was very specific, and that's because I live in local government, that transparency is a big deal. And so I knew that if I wanted to build this system and if I wanted to build it with public sector values, it was going to embed transparency as a part of that. And so they can see that workflow and what's happening. And if something doesn't like have an output, we can go back through and look at that execution plan and what was actually done. So that transparency piece is for local government by local government.
And when it comes to what he was saying, that is where we're responsible for actually making sure whatever we purchase or whatever we build, and actually, I'd say you're also accountable. You have to keep us accountable, right? Yeah. Right? Because I think everyone here is working in smart cities or state or local government. We're responsible to you, and keep your eye out. Keep asking those questions, both of you, and actually, hold responsible so that we are doing the right things as we move forward in a responsible fashion, because you can do it in an irresponsible fashion.
I guess one thing in particular is you talked about you have logs that you can check if something's missing and personal accountability, but when there is a vast context of text a mile long, that's useless. Are there visualizations? I mean, how are you making sure you know what you're missing? I guess that's and there are other technologies that are better than that.
I mean, I've heard a lot of companies pitch on that solution recently. So the solutions are out there and being developed. That's pretty proactive for government to go out and try and prevent problems that haven't occurred yet. And so I haven't seen anyone put that as a line item in a budget yet.
But also I would say like logs, maybe the logs that you're thinking from an agentic system when we're designing our agentic system and we're throwing those tool calls out, like those tool calls are very well scoped, very tightly scoped. And so we can see if something is missing very quickly by a tool call that wasn't done or wasn't executed. And those, and in addition to the outputs, those are the logs potentially what you're talking about. But I'm saying pull it up another level and look at that plan of execution and whether or not it was executed.
All right, well, it is 8:31, and as you all know, we like to close out on time, even though I know there's so many more questions. Hopefully our speakers